Here we are for our last little video in the knitting method series that I did. We've covered Eastern, Western, and combination, and now we're going to do my variation on combination so you can see the difference in the fabric and also just how the stitches are formed. So, if you don't know who I am Aradia Noire. I'm a resident witch and creatrix over to Brady's Hand and Danae's Divine, where I create myth, magic, and meaning for your everyday life through art, intuition, and energy work. And I wanted to do a little bit of a Technique Tuesday here and share some different methods of knitting. A lot of people know about knitting styles, which would be continental, English, and then there's some variations on continental, and there's also a few other styles that are heard of a bit less, like Portuguese, Shetland, among others. But I did cover, I've already done a continental video because I knit continental, and so it's real easy for me to do a video. I'm going to do an English style here soon, and just catch up with the other ones as I get along with it, since Portuguese is a little more involved with the filming. So there we go. But like I said, this is my version of combination. I developed this because it was just natural and easy for me to do. I feel like there's no right or wrong way to, hold your yarn, hold tension, how you get the yarn on the needles, how you get the yarn off the needles. Whatever works for you, whatever is comfortable for you, that's the way that you should do it. So I wasn't taught this method, I just started doing it this way. And actually, I will vary how I work my stitches, unless otherwise directed, based on what stitches are grouped together, what they follow, what's following them, and stuff like that. Because I'll find that sometimes after certain motions, it's easier to wrap the yarn a specific way, like if you're switching from knitting to purling, or if you've got yarn overs worked in there as an increase. So, like I said, whatever way works for you, that's the way you should knit. What you'll need, of course, is yarn and needles, and there you go. And a final thing I will say is it is worth learning different styles and methods. They suit different fabrics and different patterns and yarn and tools differently. And so, experiment and try things out. A lot of times changing the way you work with yarn will also change the tension it creates on your hands. So if you're going to knit for a long period of time, you may want to vary how you hold the yarn and how you work the stitches. I will say the thing about if you vary how you work the stitches and you're not consistently working the stitches in the same manner all the time, it is going to make for a little bit of a wonkier fabric. So consistency there is probably a bit more important. But you can also make the case of argument that if you are not used to throwing and you start throwing, or you're not used to picking and you start picking, it's also going to change the characteristics of the fabric itself. So that would be something to consider. However, if you practice in all of these enough, then it's very likely you'll be able to do a better job at maintaining the tension of your gauge and therefore the resulting fabric. So there you go. All right. So with Eastern, you see it's tighter. With the Western, for me, it's very loose, and with the combination, it's somewhere in between. So this is worked. You work through the back loop, and you wrap clockwise. You work through the front loop, and you work counterclockwise. And the knits are through the back loop and worked counterclockwise, and the purls are through the front loop and wrapped clockwise. So the way I do mine is I work through the front loop for both knits and purls, and I wrap clockwise. So that's got the it's an even split between how the stitches are worked and how the yarn is distributed in the stitch between Eastern and Western, which does make it in fact a combination. And then, so here we're gonna start this off, and you can see, and also if you see my other 3 videos, there's a good degree of awkwardness involved in them, and you see this one there's less awkwardness, and that's because this is my normal way of knitting, and so it's very comfortable and it's very easy for my hands to perform in this manner. And like I said, nobody really taught me to work this way versus another. I just, it was the way that was easiest and most comfortable for me, and I attribute some of the speed with which I can work to how I knit. Some people believe certain methods are faster, and I think in general that can be true, but I would also say that if you're practiced at something, there's a really good chance that you're going to be able to move at it quicker than if you're not. So it's kind of relative. Now, if you reduce the hand movements that you make, like I've reduced the hand movements that I make when purling and when switching from knitting to purling by utilizing my index finger heavily, which is another little piece of how I do continental. Then you'll also notice that that's another part of it that's kind of important, because formerly I would have to take my hand off the needle and do a lot more adjusting, and I noticed that was just making my stitching take a lot more time, and it was just a lot of what I felt was unnecessary movement when I could do it another way. And so I learned how to do this. What do they say, necessity is the mother of invention? I needed a better way to work, and so I found one. So that is our final. And as you can see, I was able to work a lot faster. Now, something that we'll notice is I would say that the two combination versions, the traditional and then my version, are very similar in the look of the fabric. There's a little bit of a hole there, but if you look down here, that's close to the first row. There's a little one down there too. The Eastern is the tightest, the Western is the loosest, and the combination are somewhere in between. So I thought that's an interesting development, and to be honest, I have not compared these styles before. I definitely prefer my combination style because it is much easier for me to do, and I am less likely to add stitches, drop stitches, split the yarn, forget what I'm doing, or make an inconsistent fabric. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this little series on knitting methods. Stay tuned to see more videos, and I'd love to hear what knitting method you like to use. How do you learn it? You know, do you consider it fast or slow for you? Do you care? And if there's any other videos or techniques or tutorials you'd like to see, please let me know, and I can make a video. All right, happy knitting.